I had the worst night of sleep in the world yesterday, and I didn't get to sleep until so late. And then I let myself sleep in a little bit more than I probably should have. And I still didn't get a lot of sleep because I didn't want to let myself sleep in too late. Anyway, now it's like, the 2 p.m. drowsies that are kind of coming on, but maybe maybe I'll be reinvigorated by the power broker. We'll have to see. What was I going to say? That's pretty much all I have to say. I probably let myself sleep in too much. I shouldn't have done that. It's just tempting. Okay, we're on chapter, I don't know, 20 or 19 and page 382. And LaGuardia is the mayor, and he just did a whole little Central Park shindig for his bestie, Al Smith. And oh yeah, we left off where everyone's saying The Sidewalks of New York, Al Smith's classic song, for him. Okay. The old governor's eyes were tearing. From the cold December wind, no doubt, and it took some time for him to clear them, and even after he did, he spent a rather long time chewing on his cigar, which was already in shreds, before he began to speak. But when he did, he knew exactly what he wanted to say. When Mr. Moses was appointed park commissioner, I used all the influence I had with him to get him to work on a new zoo. He said, and now look at him. In less than 8 months, we've got a zoo that's one of the finest of its kind in the whole world. Smith began then to recite the whole list of Moses's achievements, stopping only when he noticed the children online trying to peer over the park wall at the cages. Cutting himself short, he said with a smile, I bid you welcome to this new zoo as night superintendent, and I hope you have a good time. And he sat down. Both of these are old. They're from a while ago, in case you were wondering. I don't get Dunkin' Donuts every day, only like 3 times a week. Later that week, when he was well enough to tell him himself, Moses informed Smith that the night superintendency carried with it certain privileges. He gave Smith a master key which unlocked the animal houses and told the governor that the zoo caretakers had been instructed that he was to be allowed to enter them whenever he wanted, day or night. And until the end of his life, Smith would delight in this privilege. The doorman at number 820 would become accustomed to seeing him walk out the front door in the evenings across Fifth Avenue under the streetlights, a somewhat paunchy figure with a big brown derby set firmly on his head and a big cigar jutting out from his face, and disappear down the steps of the darkened zoo, not to reappear for hours. The former governor and presidential candidate would walk through the animal houses, switching on the lights as he entered each one, to the surprise of its occupants, and talk softly to them. He would have in his pocket an apple for Rosie the huge hippo. And if one of the zoo's less dangerous animals was sick or injured, Smith would enter its cage and stand for a while stroking its head and commiserating with it. When he had dinner guests, he would take them along, and since they were usually Tammany stalwarts, unhappy at what LaGuardia was doing to the Tammany tiger, they delighted in a little show he would put on with the zoo's biggest and fiercest tiger, who could be counted upon to respond angrily if anyone growled at him. When Smith and his guests approached, the tiger would be sitting silently, staring at them through the bars. Smith would walk up to the cage, thrust his head toward the bars, and in his deepest and harshest voice, roar at the tiger, LaGuardia! The tiger would snarl, bare its teeth, and leap at the bars, growling in what Smith's daughter describes as obvious disapproval. What a good scene! While there were cheers aplenty for Smith at the zoo opening, however, there were plenty left over for Moses. I'm so sorry about the sleepiness. It's, oh man, I wish there was a button you could press to fall asleep. I was sitting there last night just feeling a little bit sad and being like, I want to sleep so badly, and watching dumb TikToks and reading a book that was actually kind of good. And I watched an episode of Girls and I still couldn't sleep. And then finally I fell asleep. But by that point, it was like 4. So, oh well. The invited guests on the receiving stand had been startled by the transformation in the arsenal. The stucco had been sandblasted off its walls, revealing handsome dark red bricks. The cupolas had been torn off its turrets, revealing battlements complete with archers' slits. The newel posts of the banisters on the stairs leading up to its front entrance were now upturned colonial cannon muzzles, and the banisters themselves were supported by wrought iron imitations of colonial flintlock rifles, painted white. Atop the gleaming white doorway, whose lintel had been crenellated to mirror the battlements on the roof above, an eagle glared from between 2 carved mounds of cannon balls, and on the jambs had been carved crossed swords and Indian spears. The large lamps on either side of the door had been enclosed in wrought iron replicas of tasseled drums like those carried by Revolutionary War drummer boys. And above the doorway, 3 large flags fluttered colorfully from flagpoles. All in all, the once shabby wreck looked quite like a little fort, a gay little fort that, when seen in miniature from the high floors of Fifth Avenue apartment houses, seemed to almost have been set in the park by mistake, and really to belong 6 blocks down the avenue in the windows of FAO Schwartz. Nice. And when LaGuardia unlocked the door in the bright yellow picture book, after asking the honorary night superintendent's permission, the crowd followed the 2 men through the door and through a short corridor erected for the occasion, its walls covered with picture book inscriptions such as A is for ape, B is for buffalo. Emerging on the side of the arsenal, they found there was nothing left of the old menagerie at all. Where they had become accustomed to see ramshackle wooden animal houses, they found, to their astonishment, neat red brick buildings decorated with murals and carved animal friezes, connected by graceful arcades that framed park vistas beyond, and framing a sea lion pool set in handsomely landscaped quadrangle. Moses had wanted to use distinctive materials as he had used Barbizon brick and Ohio sandstone at Jones Beach, but the CWA's refusal to purchase any but the cheapest materials had forced him to settle for concrete, plain red bricks, and some cheap limestone, and to forgo dozens of imaginative little touches he had planned. But the eye of the visitor still found plenty to delight in. The sea lion house in the pool was constructed of unadorned concrete, but it was constructed so that visitors could watch the sea lions even while they were inside. The paths to the pool divided a sunken landscaped quadrangle into 4 separate, neatly trimmed lawns. Each was surrounded by low hedges. In the center of each was a wonderfully gnarled and twisted Japanese ginkgo tree. The steps leading down the quadrangle were flanked by fierce-visaged stone eagles, big enough to glower eyeball to eyeball as at many of the children walking past them. Scary. If you're just coming in, we're talking about the Central Park Zoo, which just got renovated. It's 1934. They have money from the government because of the New Deal, and Robert Moses just put on this big old park renovation ball. They're celebrating that the zoo now has new animals, and this building called the Arsenal has been redone. Yeah, we're just talking about the details of it. Hello, welcome. Also, I'm yawning a lot because I'm really tired, so sorry in advance. On the far side of the quadrangle, Okay, wait, let's see. On the far side of the quadrangle, at the Animal House level, past the cavorting sea lions, the stone eagles, the lawns, the shrubbery, and ginkgo trees, the eye was startled by a large lioness proudly holding up for inspection a peacock that she killed, while her two cubs sniffed at the beautiful tail dangling limply to the ground. A bronze statue that had stood in some seldom visited corner of the park for 70 years until Moses rescued it. Okay, I was a little scared. I thought a real lion killed a real peacock, which I know probably happens in the real world, but I was like, that doesn't seem great for a zoo. But luckily, it's a statue, guys. Also, it's just a statue. And behind the statue was a low terrace on which little tables topped with gay parasols sat in the shade of a bright, vertically striped awning 80 feet long. An outdoor dining terrace on which diners could sit and be entertained by the sea lions and by the crowds being entertained by the sea lions. And as the eye followed the vertical stripes of the awning upward, it abruptly found itself being stared back at by lions, tigers, elephants, and hippopotami. I didn't know that was the plural. Hippopotami gathered under waving palm trees. For the cafeteria's 80-foot long clerestory, do not know what that is. Clerestory? I'm just going to look it up because I'm curious. Clerestory. Okay, it's just the upper part of a large church. All right, cool. So that had been covered with a droll animal mural. Oh, thank you so much for the good news that mostly in the wild, lions apparently do not eat peacocks. Thank you. That's really good. That's good news. There are many problems with the world, but at least lions aren't eating peacocks on the daily. Throughout, the zoo was proof piled on proof that Moses had been able, to some extent at least, to make imagination take the place of money. The CWA had insisted that the animal houses be constructed primarily of common red brick and concrete. But Embury, the architect, accustomed to working with the costliest of materials, nevertheless succeeded under Moses's prodding in making them attractive. Their proportions were exceptionally well balanced, their lines exceptionally clean. Some of the brick had been used to place charming ornamental chimneys on their roofs. Some more had been used for designs that broke the monotony of the concrete clerestories. Connecting the animal houses with arcades gave the whole scene unity. And the zoo buildings were adorned with little touches that, as at Jones Beach, scaled down the architecture to the size of a good time. Tiny, delicate cast-iron birds perched atop the lamps and flanked the doors of the animal houses. Slender rods, topped with little white balls, held big white globes that cast light over the walk in front of the cafeteria terrace. The lamps hanging in rows in the animal houses were glazed balls, but around each ball was a slanted copper ring that made the fixture look like a long row of Saturns whirling in the sky. There are so many details of what this thing looks like. No one had to wonder what was in each building. Around the top of each wall was a frieze carved in low relief in limestone panels, depicting its occupants in marvelously lifelike poses. Among the figures over the monkey houses, for example, were a monkey chasing butterflies and a gorilla chewing a twig with a wonderfully contemplative expression upon his face. And the weather vanes atop each building were comic depictions of one of the building's inhabitants, done by the unknown designers who had caused architects from all over the world to exclaim at the weather vanes at Jones Beach. The one over the birdhouse, for example, showed a spindly-legged heron jutting its long bill underwater in search of food. It was a miniature masterpiece of angularity silhouetted against the sky. Okay, this is a lot of descriptions. The purpose of the park, Moses had been telling his designers for years, wasn't to overawe or impress. It was to encourage the having of a good time. Wheeling through the park were movable refreshment carts, But these weren't ordinary refreshment carts. They were adorned with painted animals and garlands of flowers in colors that were intentionally gaudy, replicas of Sicilian carretinas. Their operators were dressed in costumes that were extravagantly Sicilian. Even their wares were special. In addition to the standard peanut soda and candy bars, each carried, prominently displayed on top, whirling silver foil windmills, strings of brightly colored balloons, flags, banners, braided whips, and stacks of animal picture and coloring books. And to blow up the balloons, the zoo is equipped with the latest in balloon blowing devices, the Kelly's rocket, whose windy whoosh delighted children. And the decision to build the zoo around a sea lion pool was the crowning touch. The boisterous barking and slippery antics of these traditional circus clowns, the raucous enthusiasm with which they played tag underwater, dove for the fish thrown to them by keepers, and playfully slithered, big-bellied and long-necked around their concrete home, ensured that the central panorama would be one to delight any child. Aww. It's cute that there were sea lions in the park. I wonder if the sea lions were happy there, like if it was a good place for them to live. I don't really know, but it's cute that they were there. On a summer day, when the animals were all inside and the central quadrangle in which the sea lions frolicked was lined with black and white striped zebras, is there another kind? Tan lions, furry brown monkeys, and red-rumped baboons. The central panorama was, as near as any man could make it, given the CWA's stinginess, exactly what Robert Moses had envisioned. A scene out of a children's picture book. I'm so curious about Robert Moses' home life because he has 2 little kids. And it's cute that before he had kids, he was talking about oh, I'm gonna build a big highway. And now that he's a dad, he's like, let me make this look like a cute little book. I wonder if any of this is him being a little softy, but we have no idea because we never hear about his family. And the zoo was viewed as the triumph it was. Some zoophiles, ignoring the violet ray baths Moses had installed so that monkeys would get their necessary quota of sun in winter, the specially designated scratching posts set up for the lions, and the replacement of Tammany's rifle-toting keepers with trained animal experts and doctors. But still, they criticized the concrete floors of the cages, which they said would give the animals tender feet. But architects, as quoted in Fortune, found the architecture gay and amusing and occasionally pointedly absurd. Architectural Forum called the view from the cafeteria terrace the finest eating view in the city. The press cheered too, and the public gave its own vote of confidence. The crowds that streamed into the zoo behind LaGuardia and the honorary night superintendent on opening day numbered 32,000. That's so many people to go to a zoo. A figure that Moses found so unbelievable that he ordered the counters he had installed at the entrance double-checked. But the next Sunday, after word of mouth about the new zoo had a week to spread, attendance was 57,000. By 1935, on an average Sunday, more than 100,000 visitors would come to the picture book in the park. Wow. That is so many people to come to the zoo. When did it start? Okay, I'm just going to Google this. Maybe other people know, but Central Park Zoo, whatever happened to it? Let's see. It was renovated in 1988. It's still there. I just feel like there's not that much stuff there, but maybe I don't go because I'm not a kid. Maybe that's why. Okay. Okay, so now we just turned the page. We had a little 3 asterisks thing, so there's about to be a vibe shift. And the Triborough Bridge was finally being built. Here was a project to kindle the imagination. This is exciting times. Oh, I don't remember the plot of I don't really remember very much about Madagascar. I haven't seen it since it came out when I was a wee little child. Maybe I should rewatch though. It was good. I remember the no, actually I forgot everything, I think. Okay, the Triborough Bridge. Its size, its proport the I'm already off to a bad start. In size, its proportions were heroic. For all Moses's previous construction feats, it dwarfed any other single enterprise he had undertaken. Its approach ramps would be so huge that houses, not only single family homes, but sizable apartment buildings, would have to be demolished by the hundreds to give them footing. Its anchorages, the masses of concrete in which its cables would be embedded, would be as big as any pyramid built by an Egyptian pharaoh. That is so crazy. Its roadways wider than the widest roadways built by the Caesars of Rome. To construct these anchorages and to pave these roadways, just the roadways of the bridge proper itself, not even the approach roads, would require enough concrete to pave a 4-lane highway from New York to Philadelphia, enough to reopen depression shuttered cement factories from Maine to the Mississippi. To make the girders on which that concrete would be laid, depression banked furnaces would have to be fired up at no fewer than 50 separate Pennsylvania steel mills. To provide enough lumber for the forms into which that concrete would be poured, an entire forest would have to crash on the Pacific coast on the opposite side of the American continent. Okay, that was a really eye-opening paragraph because I guess I have been living my 24 years of life kind of naive to how big bridges are. Um wow, I've crossed the Triborough Bridge. I totally thought this is big. I didn't realize that it was like enough concrete for New York to Philadelphia big. That's amazing. Also, I bet Robert Moses spent so long on this paragraph. Anyway, Triborough was really not a bridge at all, but 4 bridges which, together with 13,500 feet of broad viaducts, would link together 3 boroughs and 2 islands. One of those bridges, the span over the Harlem River that would connect Manhattan with Randall's Island, would be the largest vertical lift bridge in the world. Its 2 steel towers would have to be big enough to support 2,200 tons of steel deck, longer than a football field, and wide enough to accommodate a 6-lane highway and 2 sidewalks and a broad median safety island that would hang between them. The towers would have to be big enough to contain drum hoists capable of raising that deck, together with its highway, sidewalks, and median islands, 80 feet, keeping it perfectly horizontal all the time to permit the passage of large ships. And the Harlem River span would be the largest vertical lift bridge in the world, only on sufferance from another of Triborough's 4 bridges. The 8-lane triple-span steel truss affair over the Bronx Kills that would connect Randall's Island with the Bronx. Because the Bronx Kills was not navigable, the Navy had ruled that its span could be a fixed structure, but only if it were built. What? It could be a fixed structure, but only if it were built so that its central span could be converted into a lift bridge if the Kills was ever made navigable. I'm so sorry. I should probably know this. Maybe this is embarrassing. I'm looking at Bronx Kills. Oh, okay. All right. Helpful information. It's a narrow strait. It's a waterway. It's a little river thing. I know kill means like stream or something in Old Dutch. I've talked about this before because there's cities called like Fishkill, and it has to just do with like fish stream, but it sounds like murder now. But okay, the Bronx Kills is a waterway. That actually helps so much. Also, hi Pearl. Pearl, want to say hi to the people? Look at all your friends. Say hi. Imagine if she were the reincarnation of Robert Moses this whole time, and that's why she was always so interested in the book. Pearl, what do you think about big bridges? How big should they be? Should they be really big? So big! Wow, I think she is probably Robert Moses. I lost my place. And both the Harlem River and the Bronx Kills spans both the Harlem River and the Bronx Kills spans looked small beside the half-mile long suspension bridge, one of the largest bridges of that type in the world, that would arc 135 feet in the air to carry Triborough's roadway across the turbulent riptides of Hell Gate, the narrow, twisting, rock-lined passage between Ward's Island and Astoria in Queens. The Triborough Bridge, by the way, was renamed the Robert F. Kennedy Bridge in 2008. The steel towers of that bridge would each be higher than a football field standing on end, and it was that bridge's anchorages in whose concrete would be embedded cables made up of enough wire to circle the globe twice around that were as big as pyramids. This is really crazy, the scale of it. The last of the four bridges, a causeway connecting Randall's and Ward's Islands, would have stood alone as an engineering feat of no mean magnitude, but so huge was Triborough that the causeway was a mere incident in its construction, as was the flying junction on Randall's Island, the largest batch of traffic sorting spaghetti ever concocted. A cloverleaf as big as a railway switchyard, and so ingeniously designed that although 22 lanes of traffic converge on and radiate from its long lines of toll booths, winding around one another on 3 decks, no one of those lanes meets or crosses another at grade, and every driver using any one of them, no matter what his destination or point of origin, must stop at one, but only one, toll booth. Triborough was not a bridge so much as a traffic machine, the largest ever built. The amount of human energy that would be expended in its construction gives some idea of the immensity. More than 5,000 men would be working at the site, and these men would only be putting into place the materials furnished by the labor of many times 5,000 men. Before the Triborough Bridge was completed, its construction would have generated more than 31 million man-hours of work in 134 cities in 20 states. How does he have this information? And the size of the bridge is shown by the amount of money involved. With $5,400,000 already contributed by the city and $44,200,000 promised by the PWA. Okay, so we're at a lot of money. That's like $50 million. The amount promised for its construction was almost equal to the combined cost of all the projects Robert Moses had built on Long Island during the previous 10 years. And the size was the least of it. I need a little coffee sip break. Whew. Let me know if you have any tips for falling asleep. I've been struggling. From the air, and Moses spent hours over New York City as a passenger in chartered small planes in 1934, studying the city's contours. What? That's so funny that he just flew around all the time. It's kind of a funny image. One could hardly fail to also, wow, flying in a plane after that one mayor. Oh shoot, what was that one mayor's name who died by falling out of a plane right after leaving the mayor's office? Mitchell. John Perroy Mitchell, the boy mayor. Okay, so he's up in the plains. One could hardly fail to appreciate more significant implications of the Triborough project. The built-up streets of Manhattan, the Bronx, and Queens rushed together at the bridge site, but paused there held apart by the tangle of water surrounding Randall's and Ward's Islands. A procession of piers, erupted by the old bankrupt Triborough Authority, was scattered at odd intervals across those islands, as if to show how easy it would be to bring those massed streets together by building the Triborough Bridge. But until the bridge was built, the streets would remain separated, their inhabitants condemned to countless wasted hours of needless travel. The man who built the Triborough Bridge would be a man who conferred a great boon on the greatest city of the New World. He would be the man who tied that city together. In fact, since each of the three boroughs was as large as a city in its own right, the man who built the Triborough Bridge could be said to be performing a feat equal to tying together three cities. And he would also, of course, be the man who, patching together the rent torn in the East Millennia, before the glaciers rumbling down from Hudson Bay, reunited Long Island with the mainland of the United States. Wow. I think I might quit there. Yeah, I'm quitting there. We have a little illustration though. I'll show it to you. It's on the next page, on 388. This is it. This is I think it shows up in a way that you can read, which is really nice. But that's the Triborough Bridge. If you want more landmarks that I know, and by the way, I've only lived in New York for like 3 years, so I don't really know that many things about it. Okay. This is like where the Bronx Zoo is. I went there one time. It was super fun. This is where Central Park is. Rikers Island is like kind of... Oh, wait, that's Rikers Island. That's jail. That's where a lot of prisoners are. Like Anna Delvey lived there for 2 years. What else is like fun to point out? LaGuardia Airport right there. JFK is like off the map over there. I don't really know which block in Queens inspired Jenny from the Block, in the Bronx. That was a really crucial mistake. I don't know which one, but we could probably find it out. I'm sure it's on this map somewhere. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all you need to know about this corner of New York City. That's really... Oh, one time when I was going to the Queens Museum, which is in like this area, for the first time in my life, this has ever happened, I was in an Uber and it crashed. And then I did not know what to do because I kept being like, can I have a refund? And the guy, it was just the least of his concerns at that moment. And so then I just kind of left and I don't think I got a refund. Anyway, yeah. I hope you have a good rest of your Wednesday. See you later.